Hi there, Mercedes owners. Today in your 2021 Sprinter 3500, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install REDARC's Tow-Pro Elite Trailer Brake Controller. To assist us with this install, we're also going to be using a plug-and-play harness from Tekonsha. We will still have to do a little bit of splicing, but it's going to make our world a whole lot easier. REDARC's Tow-Pro Elite is going to be a very hidden brake controller that's installed in our Mercedes here, that will allow us to have a very small footprint here in our dash that's going to give us all the typical outputs that a regular brake controller was without that massive controller that would be hanging here. Typically it's a thing that you hit your knees on when you're getting in and out of the vehicle. Now we can have a much smaller button and still get all the things that we want to happen. So you might be wondering, hey, it's so small, where's your manual slide? How do you make your adjustments? How does it happen with this little guy right here? Well, everything actually is controlled right here through the button, but there's a module hidden behind the dash that actually is controlling kind of everything behind the scenes. This is just our user interface. We can rotate the knob between a 0 and 10 for our sensitivity adjustment. That also affects the output for the manual slide. This doesn't have a slide like your traditional brake controller, it's just got a button press. But you can see there, as you press the button, it kind of just slowly ramps it up. You'll see the color transition from blue to red as it ramps it up with red. I've got it 10 on the setting, so red's going to be our maximum output. Just like that. So you still get those features. You can still set your adjustments here. It is designed for trailers up to 3 axles, so it should be good for pretty much anything you're planning on pulling here. The Tow-Pro Elite has an additional mode. This is a proportional brake controller. So that means that it will detect the movement of the vehicle and apply the brakes on your trailer appropriately to how hard you're trying to stop here in your vehicle. And the amount of output, again, is with your numbers here. So if you're wanting to do some off-roading though, a proportional brake controller can sometimes not be the best solution, because if you're in like a mud situation or something, you hit the brakes and you slide in your vehicle, it's not detecting that inertia of you trying to stop because you're sliding. So we can ensure that our brakes apply in our trailer by switching over to the manual control mode. To do that, rotate your knob all the way to 0, press the brake, and double tap the knob. It'll change to the green color that you see there. That lets you know you're in the user control mode. From here, you'll just set your sensitivity adjustment, and now it acts it's kind of like a subtle delay before its output is sent out. So I'm going to put it all the way up to maximum of 10 and hit the brake here. And you can see it does like a kind of a subtle ramp up, almost as if you were hitting the manual slide. Very similar to that. So that can be really useful in those situations where you're off-roading. You can see it goes from green to red when in this mode, with, again, green being 0. But the reason you would want that is this way, no matter what, when you hit your brakes, the trailer brakes are going to apply. So even if we go to slide in our vehicle when we're off-roading, we've got brakes here and on the trailer all trying to help us stop this vehicle. So this is definitely the mode you want in those slick, like muddy off-road situations. To get back into the proportional mode for where you're going to probably leave it set most of the time driving out on the highway, just put it back to 0, hit the brake, and double tap the knob to change back. We'll begin our installation here at the front of the vehicle on the driver's side. Here's our components that we've got laid out on the seat. You've got your REDARC module here. You've got your buttons that allows you to interact with the module and control it. And it comes with a wiring harness here. This will plug into the controller there and gives you all your power and inputs from the vehicle to make the unit operate. And this cable here is just the connection between the button and the module to allow it to send all those inputs that you're putting on the button here to the module. Now this harness here that comes in the kit, I would not recommend for your Mercedes. But now there is a kind of a better option than trying to cut and splice this because of how short this cabling is and where your factory connector is. So this is a cable from Tekonsha. It actually does not have the right end here for our brake controller here. This is for a Tekonsha brake controller, but all the wire colors are going to be identical, so we can cut this Tekonsha end off and wire it directly to the harness that comes in your kit here to get the appropriate end. That's also going to give us a very long cable because we need to have this extra length due to the location of where the factory connector is. This Tekonsha plug here comes with the factory Mercedes connector that'll plug right into your vehicle, so we don't have to do any splicing in the difficult location where this is located. You'll find your factory connector underneath the seat here. Now you could pull the seat out, and you may have to, depending on how buried the cable might be in there. I got lucky, and when I just kind of picked up on this covering here, I could see the cable just kind of straight down back there, and I just reached down in there and I grabbed it. And I was looking for a green connector end that looked like it was gonna match with the Tekonsha one. So there it is. We were able to find that connector end. Let's just plug our cable right into it. You do have to line up the little tabs to get it to line up. So there we go. We're now plugged in. If you were gonna try to splice this, it'd be real hard right here underneath the seats. That's why I highly recommend being able to just plug this in. You definitely would need to remove the seat to be able to splice into this. And you would likely need to extend your wire because nobody wants a brake controller under their seat. You want it in the dash here where you can access it and see it easily when you're driving. So having this extra length here from the Tekonsha will give us that ability to be able to route this up towards the dash, and then we're gonna make it even longer with this little harness here. So now that we've got our factory connector plugged in, we need to get the wire routed towards the dash here. We're gonna mount our components, kind of hide it behind there. And our switch here, we're gonna probably mount it about this location in the dash, so we'll be drilling a hole there. To get this wire routed up there, we're actually just gonna tip it right down here at the front of the seat and then go underneath the carpet. To get it to tip down the front of the seat, we are gonna have to take these 2 bolts for the seat here loose just so we can lift it up a little bit to get our wire to sneak under there, because the gap here is big enough for the wire to go under, but not big enough for the connectors to fit through. So we can sneak it in this way. Using a 10mm socket to remove these. All right, we get both of those out of the way. We'll now grab a small pry bar here. You don't need anything crazy. We're gonna stick it in the little gap here in the front and just push down on the pry bar. And that's gonna lift up on our seat. We don't need to lift up, real hard. We just need to lift it up enough that we can poke the wiring down in there. And then we're just gonna let it go back down. And then we're gonna check to make sure that our wiring's free. We don't wanna pinch it between that bar. Everything's nice and clean there. We can move it. So we're gonna reinsert our bolts now. After you tighten it down, double check your wiring, because if you pinch it, you're gonna need to reposition it. We're still free there. All right, we're still free. So now we're gonna start routing it underneath the carpet towards the dash. So now we're just gonna run this under the carpet. So you can kind of just grab the carpet there near your seat. It's kind of where I found the best place for your fingers to fit is. And we're just gonna tuck this underneath the carpet. Just kind of pulling it back. Trying to get the wire back up here to the dash. All right, there we go. It's gonna be hidden underneath the dash there. We might need to tweak our wire length and stuff here just a little bit so we can get a good smooth transition under the carpet. So now we're gonna swap over the connector ends. So we're gonna just transfer the connector that came in our kit to this one. So I'm just gonna cut this Tekonsha end off here. We are gonna do it one wire at a time because some of these wires might be live since we've tapped into it over there. And if you cut the power and the ground wire at the same time, you're gonna cause a short. So it's best to just do them one at a time. That way you can't make any mistakes too. So then we're just gonna take this is the harness that comes in our kit. The ends are already pre-stripped for you. So that makes it pretty easy. The black wire here, we'll just connect to the black, blue to blue, red to red, white to white. You are probably gonna need yellow butt connectors for the blue and the black. And then you can probably get away with blue butt connectors on the white and the red, because they are a slightly smaller gauge wire. On this side, you will need to strip since we had to cut. So just grab your strippers and strip this side back. And this should be the hot wire right here, this black one. So we should be okay with the rest of them cutting them. But again, I would still recommend just doing it one at a time. Slide our new butt connector over our wire. Crimp it down. Double check it, make sure it's snug on there. Everything looks good. We're just gonna move on to the next one, rinse and repeat for each one. And again, you're just matching color for color. So now we can go ahead and mount up our module. So we got our new connector here all wired up. It'll plug in. I'm gonna wait to plug it in until I get it mounted. You can plug it in now. I'm just gonna wait just because it'll be a little easier for me to get this mounted up without that cable in the way. We're gonna be mounting it up. There's a nice open hole right here that you can get into to see kind of behind the dash. And if you go straight up from this hole, it's probably at about this point right here, about this high. There's a support beam that's running back from the firewall. We're just gonna use some cable ties, run through these slots here around that support beam and secure it to the support beam. It's gonna be pretty crowded in there when I go in there to do it, so you're likely not gonna see anything until after I've got it mounted up, and then we should be able to get in there and let you see what that support beam looks like. So now if we follow our wiring up where we routed it, you can see our module located there on the cross beam. We just use the cable ties to attach it to that support beam there. That's gonna give us a nice sturdy mount for our module. I went ahead and plugged in the wire as well that we had routed over to this point. So this is also a good location because it's up kind of high. That means it's up near where we're gonna be mounting our switch in the dash, so that way we'll have plenty of cable length to go from this module to a lot of different areas on our dash. So now we're kind of just feeling around our panel here, seeing for the best location. Originally I wanted to put it here, just below these buttons, but after feeling around, this plastic here is significantly thicker than what this is going to accept. Our switch isn't gonna be able to mount something that thick. So we need some thinner plastic. If we go just down underneath this turn here, if you're feeling down there, we can feel that this is a much thinner plastic. It gets real thick right here, and then it becomes real thin right here. So we're gonna put it just below this little angle. Probably gonna line it right up with the middle line there, and then just drop it right there. So now that we know where we're wanting to install our switch, we can go ahead and drill out for our switch. So again, I'm just gonna follow this, try to do this in a straight line just to make it look nice and match up well here on our body. So we're gonna try to match that up. That looks like that's pretty good there. And I might actually bias it towards this side a little bit, just because I know there's kind of a brace on this side a little bit that's back here. That might get in the way, so we might just bias it a little bit on this side. About right there should be a pretty good spot. And we're using a 3/8 drill bit for this. We want to use the 3/8 bit because of our nut here. If I just kind of quickly assembled all the pieces so I'd have them together here. And here's our nut, and this is the size hole that we are trying to drill out, because the nut there, that sheathing on it, actually slides in here. So it's a little snug, because it's actually a 10 millimeter, but probably like us and have mostly standard size drill bits. So you can go up one size from the 3/8, or you can kind of just ever so gently wallow this out. So we just want this to be able to insert easily. There we go, so that way we can spin it. That's pretty good. That was a nice slide in. That way we'll be able to tighten it down. That all looks pretty good. So now we can get our switch inserted. We're gonna bring it up there and insert it. Due to the kind of strange location of it, I am gonna go ahead and plug in my electrical wiring into the back of it now, because it may be difficult to access later. So the white end of your harness plugs into the switch. The black end will plug into your module. So we've got those plugged together. We're gonna reach around back and feed that through the switch. Oops. It can be difficult to hold all the pieces here while you're trying to do this. There we go. So we'll get that lined up. I'm gonna quickly just get my nut started on here just to hold this together. And then before we actually put the nut on there, this is a sticker that comes in the kit. This is gonna go over the hole. I just like to use the pieces to help me line it up, so that's why I'm putting them in there like that. If you can stick the sticker right on over the hole perfectly, eyeballing it, go for it. I'm just not very good at eyeballing things, so I prefer to have some components there to help me line it up. It also gives us a little kind of a centering tab there at the top. Yeah, we dropped it anyway. Sometimes it happens. All right, and then we'll just get that stuck into place. And now we'll put our pieces back in and tighten them down. Once you get your nut started, we'll use a 12mm socket, and I'm just going to use it by hand. It's a plastic nut just to snug it up. That's all we need, is just to be snug there. There's a button press there that we need to make sure it operates. So twist your knob all the way to the left now. So counterclockwise fully. We can then take the 0 on our knob and line that up with the little dash that's there. And now with it fully counterclockwise, we've got the 0 at the top. It just slides right into place. We twist it all the way clockwise. 10 should be at the top, 0's at the top, counterclockwise. So that all looks good. At this point, just take the wire now it's in the back of the switch and route that across. There's a air duct right here, so I kind of just went down, went across the air duct and then went up, and then I plugged it into the module. So now I've gone ahead and plugged in our tester. You can see that down there. That's going to simulate a trailer. Once you plug in your tester at this point, if you've got all your, you got your button in, your module plugged in, you should see it just like we see here, where it's flashing between green and blue, with it primarily being green. That's letting us know that the system needs to be calibrated. To do this, we're just going to drive the vehicle. And the reason it needs to be calibrated is because this has that hidden module that we were able to install behind the dash. We can put that in any orientation we want, kind of just however we want. Now all we got to do is drive it, and what it's going to do is it's going to kind of figure out how it's oriented in the vehicle by detecting those stop motions that we're going to be doing here. So you can also check one more thing though. We're going to check the manual output. That should still function with our system not calibrated. So turn it up to 10. If you got it on 0, it won't do anything. And then if we hit the button, we can see it's lighting up red there, and we can hear on our tester that we've got output. So we're now in the vehicle. We're just going to be driving it in a straight line and then hitting the brakes. This can take up to 20 brake presses to get it to calibrate. If you have a trailer plugged in, you're going to get that feedback just like we saw in the shop there of that green and blue flashing. If you don't have a trailer plugged in, it will still calibrate while you're driving. You just won't get any feedback on your knob. It's just going to be blank without a trailer. So yeah, we're just going to kind of just start and stop just like that, and do that probably, I would say it takes me usually between 5 and 10 on most vehicles to get it calibrated. And I'm looking down at the switch. If you do have a trailer plugged in, you'll see it transition, having less green on time and more blue on time the closer it gets to being completed its calibration. Once it lights up fully blue, you know that it's fully calibrated at that point. So yeah, we're just gonna keep doing this. We've done maybe 2 stops so far. I can already see a difference in the on and off time between green and blue. And at this point now we have more blue on time than we do green, and it was the other way when we first hooked it up. So it's probably gonna take me about 3 or 4 more of these to get it calibrated. So now that we're back from our test drive, if we look here, we can see that it's lit up just solid blue. That lets us know that the calibration is completed. At this point, you just need to choose the best setting for your vehicle and trailer here with the adjustment on the sensitivity of the knob, and you're ready to hit the road. If you need to press down on it for a manual slide or for the manual application at any point, you can do so. And if we look here, we can see that the higher the number, it's red, and the lower the number is blue. Blue being no output, red being maximum output, and the light transitions in between, giving you some feedback there as well, so you don't have to look at the exact number. And that completes our installation of REDARC's Tow-Pro Elite on our 2021 Mercedes Sprinter 3500.